Hello, Laura, Andrew. How are you guys today?
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
We're doing great.
You look like you're just relaxed after all the time you've spent in the studio getting this record to sound just as great as it sounds. You look relaxed and enjoying. Now you can enjoy the all of your efforts. I want to just take a quick second to introduce the audience to you. We've spent some time with them in the past, a little bit last year. This is Three Pairs of Boots, Laura and Andrew, married couple, duo, out there making lots of great music in the business, and I can't wait for you to hear their new album, which is called Mighty Love. Just came out. I mean, it just came out last week, right? The week before last week.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's an exciting time to get to talk to you right after it hit the streets here. It's very exciting. But I welcome you back, and I thank you so much again for being so gracious with your time today to see us again.
Thank you so much for having us back, Kevin. It's lovely to see you again. And yeah, we're excited to let you know what's going on.
And there is lots happening, lots happening. The grass does not grow below your feet. You're just always on the go.
Andy keeps us busy.
It's Andy's fault, huh?
Yes. All his fault.
Well, before we get too deep into conversation today, I just wanted to ask you once again. We talked about it last time, but people who may not have seen that first interview are going to want to know, how did the name Three Pairs of Boots come about? I remember the story, but I want you to tell our audience.
Well, originally, way back when we first started, there was a third member, our good friend Happy Sanchez, who came in and helped us write a few songs. And that's when we decided, this is really great. We really love this. It's in our wheelhouse, and full steam ahead. And he basically said, "Great, see you later." And then we just kind of went off and started writing songs on our own. He's helped us on a few different projects, over our history of being musicians. He helped us start one or two other projects as well, and we still work with him on occasion on different things. He played drums on the gig we did a few months ago. He also has a Latin band called the Hispanic All Stars.
Oh,
it's a 12-piece
wow.
horns, Latin percussion, and I've played bass with them. I've played guitar with them. So he's quite a talented guy. And so when we were originally writing songs, I was thinking, well, if he sticks around, I wanted a name that would, denote that there were three of us.
Right.
And I don't really know where the boots came from, but it just kind of,
Uh-huh.
it just sort of popped up. And I'm sure as talking to musicians, you may hear the comments that it's not that easy to find a good band name.
True. It's true.
And that one just sort of stuck. Although one of Laura's friends made a joke about how maybe we should have called the band 300 Pairs of Boots. But
yeah, very funny.
Anyway, so that's basically it. It was to honor the way that we started, essentially.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I remember it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's how I remember it. The one thing I do remember is I think we got on Google and we were looking for what about this name? What about that name? Everything was taken. Everything that popped into our head was taken. Some band had it. So, not the easiest thing.
I would think it'd be like you said, you did the homework to see who else is out there with names, and before the internet, we would have never known, right? There could have been someone in Switzerland with the same name, and we wouldn't have known it. But now with the internet, we can check the world out.
That's right. Yay.
So, I just thought because I know people would be curious to know how you named the band, and I remember the story from last time we talked, and I thought it'd be good to remind people about that or tell them if they haven't heard before. So, the last time we spoke was at the beginning of last year, and you were promoting Long Rider, and so here we are about a year and a half later, and the new album Mighty Love just came out last week. We're going to break it down track by track and ask you some questions about each track to get to know the whole album. But before we do that, I thought maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you knew you had the right combination, or how you put together the right combination of songs to make this album. Like with all the songs you record, always, I'm sure the brain is always turning with new lyrics, new melodies. How did you know when you had the right songs to complete this album?
Oh, I'm going to pass this to you. We can
We tend to I write a lot of songs. I write a lot of songs. Laura is more of a quality songwriter. It seems like the songs that she writes tend to always make the record. I'm more of a quantity songwriter, so maybe 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4, all depending upon which songs connect with Laura, because I'm always writing with her voice in mind. Um, but we don't. So we just, as we're writing and writing and writing and deciding which songs to take from, a simple voice memo to, well, let's go into full production. We don't really discover what the album is about really until the end. And sometimes songs get fully produced and don't make it to the record. There were 2 songs that were produced for the Long Rider record, which made it all the way through mastering. And as we listened to the 12 songs on Long Rider, we decided that 2 of them weren't quite good enough. The other 10 were just, stood out, but those 2 didn't quite make it for whatever reason. So I think for Mighty Love, I think it actually was easier, because I hope that we're getting better at songwriting. So I think it was a little bit easier to decide which songs really should go into production for Mighty Love. But we don't really know until we get towards the end and we really hear the collection of the songs, and just organically kind of a feeling about what the album is about kind of comes into play. I mean, all the songs on the album were all written within the last, year. Well, written in 2020. So it's not like we had a bunch of songs hanging out from what that we wrote 10 years ago or whatever.
Right, right.
So I think it tends to hold the album together and create a theme. There certainly was a theme with Long Rider.
Yeah.
And this one also developed into a theme. And Laura, who wrote the title track, wrote it really towards the end of the process. And I think she absorbed everything in terms of the feelings that we were putting forth on this record through the songs. And she wrote a song that, immediately made it to the record, went into production, and became the title track.
Right.
Yeah, I was feeling pressure towards that end because I guess I really hadn't been writing too much. There was a lot going on with our in our lives with our family, and we were busy, and then Andy just writes so much music. I feel like, every other day he was calling me in to the office and saying, "Okay, I want to run these songs by you." It's like, "Oh my God, I better get on this." And then plus Andy's here making music most of the time, so where's my quiet space? I really need to go into that little mystic space where I can go within and pull something out. So you went somewhere for which I was like an all day thing, and you were gone. And so I said, I better get in my room and write something. And Mighty Love is what came out, and came out real fast, and all the words and everything. So, and I even thought, I know this sounds crazy, but I hear horns in there, and I know we haven't really done that, but I just hear them. And so, Andy pulled it together, being the musical wizard that he is. He gave it the really good feel, the good sound, because that's, he's a great producer in that way. He can just take it from my sketch, which is just me and a guitar, to this full blown production, which I so appreciate.
Kind of skipping ahead one song.
That's okay. Well, that's okay. We'll get to it, and that's wonderful. It's because it's, I mean, and it's the title track anyway. So we're gonna get deep into all these songs. It's that's exciting though how that process, like you said, you had to have your own space to kind of do that because it's you can't it's so hard to just say, okay, I'm gonna sit down and write a song right now. It's like you have to get yourself mentally prepared for
Absolutely. Yes, sirree, Bob. I mean, Kevin.
that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I'm an amateur songwriter, but I've written over. I'm so busy in life now that I don't get to do as much as I used to do. I haven't done anything with it, but I just that process. I can't sit there and say, okay, now I'm going to write a song. I have to have something come to me or have that moment to just clear my brain. And so, just from an amateur viewpoint on my side, I know you really have to have that right moment to clear your head to write.
Um, you really do. And I just want to say, I don't think you're an amateur because, everybody's got something to say. And that's what this is about. No one has a patent on music, everybody gets to do it. So I'd be very interested in hearing your song. I mean, I think that would be lovely. Um, Everybody's got a perspective, and it's so great to share songs.
Well, thank you for those kind words. I mean, there was one song in all my writings that when I would teach in the schools, so my students would actually remember the words to the song I would play for them, and they would sing the chorus. I thought, well, maybe there's something there. They're singing the chorus years later. Years later.
That's You've got a hook. You've got a great hook then. It's hooky.
But that was my only
I
experience with with the fame of a song. With the
I love
popularity of a
that.
song. That one song out of 25 or 30. That one song. So that's why I know the process is so complex sometimes.
That's so great. I mean, it I feel like it just, at least for us, it just took time.
Mhm.
We had to commit to putting in the hours, and that's all it is. And if you have the time, you can do it.
Yeah, and that's always the challenge is life, like you said, family, if things get busy, and
Oh,
life happens and it's hard. The time that you spend, the two of you putting all this together, it's amazing. You think, well, do they sleep at all? I mean, the cooking show, the videos, the songs, the recordings, the interviews, I don't think they sleep at all, these two.
well, Andy does tend to get up very early. I will tell you that.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. People think people so much they think it's glamorous. The music business is glamorous. It's very rewarding, right? It's very rewarding. There's no doubt about that. But glamour at 3 or 4 in the morning when you're recording a song for the 18th time and or a wire falls out of whatever, it's not as glamorous as some people think it is. There's a lot of to get to this point. It takes a lot.
Yep, it's a lot of hard work and challenges. And then when you finish a record, I remember finishing Mighty Love in early January of this year, and I just found myself in the studio, like, just thinking to myself, all right, so where's my punch list? Like, am I really done? Like, it's been mixed, it's been mastered. We said yes to all the songs. We've got the running orders. Like, am I really done? Because I wasn't sure how to feel.
Right.
It it brought on a very relaxing time because then for the next few months it was more about getting the team together to promote it and that sort of the business side. But it sure felt good, and I was finally able to relax once
What a
the record
great
was
feeling.
finally done. But
Yeah.
I almost couldn't believe it. Like, is it really done? Like just, and it was. So it's nice to get there.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm sure. Um, you mentioned the running order, and I was going to ask you a question about the running order. Once you get all those songs, you say these are the songs that are going to be on the album. How hard is it then to do the sequencing and say this is the order?
Oh, yeah, Andy's got a process for that. I'll let him explain how he passes it around to all our friends.
Well, we have. I mean, I'll put together an order initially, but I mean it changes multiple times. I think the actual song order on the album was probably the 10th to 15th version
Hmm.
of moving the puzzle pieces around. But fortunately, we have sort of an inner circle of people that we work with, our 2 mix engineers and a couple of friends who are also in the business, one who's an A&R guy and one who's another mix engineer, and our manager as well. And so I just float the song orders to them. I'll load the songs up onto, what's that? Is it SoundCloud? One of those services.
Yeah.
So there's a service I'll just load songs up and put them in order, and it's just like, okay, what do you think of this order? You
Yeah.
know? And it's so hard to do that. And it's not, unfortunately, nearly as important these days. Back in the days of when you released a long playing album, you know, the order of the songs was very important. That's how people listened to music. They weren't streaming individual songs. They were listening to the entire record. And so there was a pacing to it. And then you get like an intermission, you know, where you got to flip
Right.
the record over. So I still think that way. I still think, you know, album, like if somebody's going to listen to our album from top to bottom, what's the right running order? And you know, part of the process is you don't want, you know, if there's 3 songs in the same key, you wouldn't necessarily want them to be back to back to back.
Yeah.
You want sort of key change, tempo change, feeling of the song to kind of shift so that you constantly get a little surprise, get taken somewhere else, yet you sort of gone down the pathway to reach, you know, the rainbow at the end of with the pot of gold. Hopefully the record has taken you on a journey through, you know, what we've been feeling, and that it, you know, it just makes you want to listen to the whole record. So the order is an elusive thing to come to, and at least for me, for us, it takes a few tries to get it right.
I'm sure. Yeah. I guess the message we can pull from this too is, of course, we want people to hear your music in any way, shape, or form they're going to hear it. If they're going to cherry pick it and hear one song off of Spotify or whatever to hear you, to get into your music, then so be it. But if you had as musicians, the 2 of you had your choice, wouldn't it be great if people went to the old school way of listening, which would be top to bottom, like you've sequenced it? That would be the ideal thing. And I think it really does. I hope it goes full circle for all of us in the industry, that it goes full circle where people start to listen to things again the way they were meant to be heard.
Oh, what a lovely sentiment. Yeah.
We still have our albums.
Me too. Me too.
And we also have, besides albums, in our dining room, we have a working 1950s Sebring jukebox.
Oh, how cool is that? That's great.
Which, you know, by the middle of the dinner party, when you sort of put your streaming stuff on and people coming over, and you know, you start breaking out the wine bottles and the food, you settle in. About the middle of dinner, when people have had a few glasses of wine, they look over the jukebox and they'll say to us, "Does that thing work?"
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Turn it on, and everybody just starts punching buttons, you know.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love that. My uncle has one actually too, and it's just so neat to go over there and show my son that this is what we used to do. You know, we used to have jukeboxes, and so it's fun to share that history with someone younger like my son and say, "Look at this. This is what it does."
Does he love it?
He loves it. Yeah, you know, it's a conversation piece when we go over there. You know, so so are all those spots full on your jukeboxes? If they're not, I know my wife would be thrilled if I sent some 45s out your way that are taking up space in our house, you know, because I don't have a jukebox, but still collect a lot of 45s, you know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, that's what ended up happening. I think people started sending us, we had our 45s and people started sending us 45s, even like joke 45s.
Right.
You know, we have like somebody sent us Steve Martin's King Tut or
Oh,
something.
sure. Uh-huh.
So yeah, we have a lot of them, but it's fun to rotate through them.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's so fun. So like we said, hopefully people go back to that sequencing at some point. But again, we're happy that they can hear your songs any way that they hear them, you know, whatever order.
Absolutely.
just to get them into it. Then we could train them to listen to it that way over time in the industry to get back to that way of listening.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that would be great.
well, let's dig right into the album here because we're gonna go track by track and talk about the many songs. The first song and the lead off single, this was the first single, if I'm correct on this, was Leap of Faith, right? That was the first single. And this, the song caught my ear right away. I mean, I thought to myself, again, to your sequencing, what a great song to pull listeners in with. I loved it from the very beginning, and it made me want to hear more. And the first track on the album, it just pulled me in and said, this is really something. I really like it.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Andy, you want to talk about it?
The song was inspired by the Traveling Wilburys.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, they had way too brief of a career together, but had some incredibly great songs, of course, given who was in the band. So I kind of wanted to write a song in that style, and I think that 2020, a year of turmoil, and a lot of things that really caused some divisiveness and some very vehement arguments and people really feeling different, not agreeing, and it sort of led me to in this particular song, to talk about what it's like to bring a child into the world, and what a responsibility it is to do so, and also to sort of reflect upon the bigger picture of that. I just sort of wonder, why is there so much hatred? Because kids are not born with that. That's not a genetic trait. So just wanted to try to get the message across that it's important to be a good steward of your children, to help make this world, become a better place to live in the future with all the challenges that we have. That was kind of the thought process. Like, so it's sort of a dual message. One is just about us being parents, and then the bigger picture of teaching your children the right way to live their lives. To be kind and respectful and honest and a good member of society, and to contribute in a positive way. That was kind of the sort of double meaning to the song.
Well, it's funny because for me, it's just, it's so hard to get through the song without wanting to cry because for me, I think about our son and gosh, where did the time go? He grew up so fast. What happened to my baby? It's like, you know, here he is, and now we're letting go, and it's that's what I think about. So it's really hard to get through it.
Yeah.
There's I remember this one story about when our son first came home after he was born. He's 3 days or 4 days old, whatever, and we sort of looked at each other, and I think it was Laura who might have said, okay, now what about this baby?
No, I said, oh my gosh, they're gonna let us take him away from the hospital. We're taking him home. Like, you know.
Did they give us the manual? Did we leave the manual in the car, or where was the manual that they gave us? Did they give us one? Did they put in a plastic bag with some?
Oh, Kevin, I mean, we were struggling with getting the baby seat thing together and putting it in the car. I thought we can't figure this out. Finally, some guy from the hospital had to come and like help us because we were so pathetic. And I thought, oh my gosh, is this how? I don't trust myself. So you could just, how it is. You just fall in love, and somehow through the grace of God, you just it all comes together, and you see, there I go again. It's so hard.
Yeah, I think that it's sort of intuitive, and a lot of people you just figure it out.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And there's all those milestones as their kid is growing up in your house. Like, wow, he doesn't need diapers anymore.
Right, right.
He can go to the bathroom himself. Oh, he can walk. It's like, then you get your first day of preschool and your first day of school, and then, they graduate from 8th grade and they go on to high school. It's like all those
All
events.
those big milestones. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, but ultimately, though, when you bring a child into the world, you really are taking a leap of faith.
Oh my goodness, yes.
You don't really know where you're going to go, where it's going to lead you, who that person is. You have a very good opportunity to influence them, but they're going to somewhat quickly become their own person, and you just hope that
Right.
your influences will help them, uh, manage in these, somewhat challenging times.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And you do, all you can do is hope that as we raise our kids that they do take to heart what we say, because there's so many other voices out there in the world, and we live in a different time where there's just so much, with social media and bullying, online bullying, and all the different things that kids have to deal with, or the parents have to regulate, that weren't around when we were all younger. So
Yeah.
so it's but yeah, the one thing I'm really happy that we did is we have my all to my wife's, compliment was, she has a Shutterfly book for every year of his life. So every month she's got pictures. So I'm so grateful for that too, because the time does go so fast. And I don't believe, so you look back and see month by month how he's changed. He's been religious about it every single year. So
That is so smart. Oh my God, I love it.
because then they grow so fast, and then you forget what did they look like when they were 3, what did they look like when they were 2, what were the fads, what kind of things were they into, and
Oh, exactly. The one that gets me is their little voices and how they change. And luckily, we have an old recording of our son's voice on uh,
On my phone,
on your phone.
my voicemail.
It's as
right
cute.
here, same thing,
Isn't
guys.
that
I
so?
Yeah,
Aren't,
yeah, I
aren't
do
we?
the same thing. Yeah.
Aren't we lucky that we did that?
Oh,
Because
yes.
as they change and grow, it's like, oh, to listen to their little voices is just
Hmm.
so. It's healing. It's just,
It's helped me through many bad days. Is I'll be at work and having a busy day and a stressful day, and I'll go to my voicemail and play that one message, and it puts it all back in perspective, why we do the things we do to support our children and to be able to support them for a living.
yeah. Oh, sweet.
So um so I guess let's move on to the next song, because I can talk about that song all day. I love that song. It's one of my favorites. It's absolutely one of my favorites. Um, you started to talk about Mighty Love, and about how I guess my question for you on Mighty Love is, then you decide that was the track to call the album. How we didn't get too deep into that just yet. It's, when you have all these songs that you like them, they're all children in a sense. They're all kind of, these songs become children, additional children. You just don't have to feed them, but you they're all like little children in a sense, I would think, and they're all important to you. How do you decide what to call the album? I mean, I know you said you threaded it together, and like you had talked a little bit about how all the songs kind of, that was the last one done, and it kind of summed it up. So
Yeah, you want to answer how you decided? Because I didn't decide that.
That's true. I decided. Uh, I mean, it came down. There were a couple different song choices for what I thought maybe the theme would be, but I think that overall, the sentiment of that song really uh, encapsulated this collection of songs, that we were just trying to um, put across a very positive message. Uh, and some of the songs are lighthearted, uh, some are a little deeper in terms of points of view. But I think that overall, there's a very positive spin on things that we like to that we put forth in these songs. It's kind of what I felt was how the record turned out, and I think that she absorbed them. This is a song that she wrote for the record. I wrote pretty much all the other songs either by myself or with my poet collaborator. And so she wrote Mighty Love towards the end of the process. And I think it just, the whole record and the recording process and what those songs were about. And even though she didn't write a lot of the songs, she certainly involved all the way through. She helps decide what songs get on the record, which songs she connects with. And I think she just absorbed them all. And it just came out with this incredible song that, there was no decision there when I first heard it. It's like, oh yeah, that song's making the record. And,
Right.
There it is. And there are times when she writes songs that they really don't need a lot of moving around, changing, arranging, whatever. I think Mighty Love came out, and other than just creating the production for it, I don't think I had to do a whole lot to it in terms of the melodies and the arrangement. It was there. And
She brought it to you in a finished form, almost a finished form as far as the lyrical, the sentiment, everything, and then you just had to give it the production.
yeah, and so I think when I was thinking about the album title, that song just really summed up best what I think the album was about and what we were trying to express through these various different subjects. Yeah, you agree?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wrote it. I think for me, it's just it's it's about unrequited love in any of its forms,
Right.
and your loyalty, your you know you your resilience, never giving up, whether that's a person you love and you're never going to give up on them, or it's this goal you're setting for yourself, you're never going to give up on that, and you just keep going and you do it like you're in love. To me, that's sort of the key to it all. It's like you're in love.
Always so interesting to hear how the songs come together, what you were thinking when you wrote them and what you were thinking when you sequenced them. And that's why I just love doing this kind of a situation where it's track by track, because you get to really explore the whole album and deeper than your career, but what your current project, and really delve into it. So it's so fun to hear these, and people, when they hear them, they start to listen to the lyrics more closely and say, what? Oh, this is what it's about, and they were talking about that, and they explain, and they makes them listen to it with a whole different sense of wonder.
Oh gosh, well, thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about them in this way, because that's one thing we have not done. So it's really fun.
Yeah, to think about each song again and how it like each came together. Yeah.
Yeah.
The third song on the album, Sweet Spot.
This one was written early in the process, and it was inspired, not based upon, but inspired by my niece, who is a very smart person, writer, photographer, who has a real deep sense uh, of searching for, where she wants to be, who she wants to be with, and it sort of got me thinking about the travels that we all go through um, in life. About where do we end up living? Where do we feel comfortable? Who do we feel comfortable with? Where's my partner? It can be so elusive. We spend a lot of time looking. I mean, when I met Laura, um, I wasn't really sure if I was ever going to get married. I had been in relationships, uh, and then just like out of left field, we met through a singer wanted ad that I'd placed, and within a year we were married. So you just don't know. You're looking, you're searching, and it's so surprising when it really happens. So the song is really about um, just the the road that one travels, looking for a place where you're going to be comfortable. And it's not like, oh, I have to live in Paris, for the rest of my life. You can move. Some people are comfortable living in one place, and some people move around. They're at home for a certain amount of time, and then they feel the need to move on. So, looking for your sweet spot is not necessarily just one spot. It's that place where you feel you belong at that time in your life, and that can change. So, so it's just sort of a reflection upon, the roads that we travel to find just that place for us to really feel comfortable and thrive, and to find the person or persons that we can be comfortable with and thrive with. So that was kind of my reflection on that.
Yeah, it's very true. But many different times in our life, many different places where there could be that sweet spot. It doesn't have to. It changes. It evolves.
Right. Hmm.
Question about the sequencing here, because I correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not positive about this, but I think you released these as single number one, single number two, single number three. When you sequenced it, you probably, when it finally came together, probably had a feeling, I don't know, that these would be the songs we promote sometimes, because sometimes traditionally singles used to be always the first tracks in the album, right? The first track was the single, but then over the years, sometimes you see people that might be track number 5 as the lead off single. But did you have any thoughts after it got sequenced and after you released Leap of Faith and you got to see how people responded to it? Is Mighty Love next, or is it Sweet Spot, or is it something deeper in the album when you were gonna? Was that already premeditated, or?
Um, it happened organically, because as we mentioned earlier, like the sequencing of the songs changed. I mean, I think at some point Leap of Faith was like fifth or sixth
Uh-huh.
in the sequencing order. Uh, so it just sort of happened organically. I think that when we settled on the sequencing order, then we had to decide, well, what are the 3 songs we're going to release prior to the release of the album? And it just sort of happened that, oh, well, I think that there's a reason why we sort of settle on this start to the record, which would seem to be a good way to start letting people hear the record as well. And so it was actually pretty easy to decide which songs to release ahead of the record, because we sort of already had gone through that thought process when we were doing the sequencing.
So yeah, so the sequencing was perfect then, because then organically they did become, when you said it and you figured this is what and then you went on to pick the singles, and you had your sequencing right down to the finest song.
Yeah, it worked out well. I think at one point it was Sweet Spot was going to be second, but we shot a video to Sweet Spot, which is going to be out in a couple weeks. And so I wanted to delay, so I swapped Mighty Love and Sweet Spot. So Sweet Spot was, we just shot this video with David Dutton, who we've worked with a number of times. He's the one who did the animation video for us on Devil Road for the second record. That was back when it was like the height of the pandemic, and we were thinking about, well, how are we going to do a video, but
Right.
we can't, go anywhere or be around anybody else. So that's why I contacted him. He's done a lot of animation stuff, but he did this. He came up with a great idea for Sweet Spot. We did not want a narrative video, so we basically went and shot in an industrial building, in a dance studio in an industrial building. And I, of course, had to change clothes constantly, because I was playing electric guitar, acoustic guitar, and banjo. And Laura was in the center, and I was sort of like I was playing electric guitar, sitting in a chair here, acoustic guitar sitting in front of Laura, and then on a stool back here playing the banjo. And depending on which instrument I was playing, I was wearing a different outfit. And the director was shooting 3 different camera treatments: a regular lit up stage, a very dark sort of silhouette, and then a colored. So we would go through the song with playing you know um, each instrument with a particular lighting setup, and then he'd change the lighting setup, and I would put on my clothes and go through playing the 3 different instruments again, and he somehow managed to put 3 of me, you know, in the video surrounding Laura, and just flashing back and forth between the different camera treatments.
Yeah.
And he's so good. He just timed the lighting so that like it went along with the lyrics, the drum fills, you know, the band fills. He just was so tuned in on it. It was a great idea. So you'll all be able to see it.
Yeah, I'm anxious
in a
to.
couple weeks.
Yeah, anxious to see that one. That sounds exciting and that's something people don't realize either too, is how much goes into making a video. I say, oh, you know, it's a 3-minute video. How many hours to make that 3-minute video? It takes all the wardrobe changes. I mean, I bet Andy, you never thought wardrobe was going to be such a complicated thing, and you know.
That was for Laura. You know, Laura was supposed to do all the work.
I relished that because, you know, I had one outfit and then I could go over there and sit and have my coffee. And he was doing all these shoots and it was really great.
Yeah, I was like rushing around, changing clothes, and I'm looking over at her. She's like sitting in a chair. She's on her phone. She's reading, you know. But it was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to share it with everybody.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting and that's, you said it's a couple weeks away from being released.
Yeah, it's there's going to be it's going to be released on Diddy TV, and then once that happens, then it's going to get flooded out everywhere else, to all sorts of various shows everywhere. So just waiting for the date for Diddy to lock us in. So
Well, looking forward to seeing that one for sure, for sure.
we'll let you know on social media. You'll find
Awesome, awesome. The next track on the album, Even Song, and I got to say this. So when you hear people sing certain songs and they do something very unique or something really cool with their voice, or they, you know, I always think of like, so I teach vocal lessons, and there's certain songs where I tell my students that you have to almost sing it that way if you're going to sing like that artist, because the artist is so iconic that if their voice goes up like that, you almost have to. People look forward to certain parts in the song, a certain guitar riff, or a certain vocalizing. And in this song, an even song, I love when you go up to the even song, you know, when you go way up high like that. I love that. And that's something. So when you do that song live, I loved it. You know, it's like, oh, the way it gets trapped. These songs get etched into a certain way, right? When you record them in the studio. And then if you do take them on the road, people hear them in that way in their mind. And maybe on 28 other takes, you didn't take that up, and now take that's on the record, you did. And I love that. Love that.
Oh, thank you so much. That was a pleasure to record that song because the minute Andy started playing that song for me as a contender song, you know, what do you
Yeah.
think of this? What do you think of this one? And I loved it. I thought, you wrote that? You
It's very
wrote that?
catchy. Very catchy.
I love it. I mean, I don't know. You really surprised me. It's not. It's more like it was the sentiment of the song that really surprised me. That you went there. I thought it was a lovely sentiment, which we're going to try to capture with the video that we're going to do in a couple weeks. We're going to go out and try to make that come alive for you a little bit.
That song was inspired by Leonard Cohen.
Okay.
I was sitting in the backyard, and the back door's open, and Laura's in the kitchen, and Hallelujah came on. I thought, wow, that is like the most incredible song. If
Yeah.
I could write a song even close to that,
Uh-huh.
you know, I'd be happy the rest of my life. And it was the kind of song where I didn't. It was the kind of song where I thought about it almost before I wrote music to it. I tend to write lyrics first and then music, and I've increasingly gotten into, in terms of songwriting and production too, where I try not to always limit myself to what I can actually play or figure out while I'm playing the guitar. I'll go for long walks and think about songs, think about where they should go, think about, from a production point of view, like where does this song need to go? And then I'll come back and try to figure out how to play that, which is different than a lot of times I'm just playing, and trying to figure things out. Even Song was a song I thought about it almost more in the beginning than most other songs. I thought about where I wanted it to go, and then I figured out how to play it on the guitar. And lyrically, it's a very modest song, just about, uh, gathering with your friends, somewhere outdoors, sitting around a campfire, kind of reflecting upon your life. And, for that one moment, it's okay to just forget about all your troubles, forget about, what's on your work docket next week. It's just about being there, and, the moon is coming up, nighttime is coming, and a time for reflection and a time to sing. I mean, it's
Time for gratitude.
yes. I mean, growing up, our parents sent us to summer camp, and I just have very, very fond memories
Mm-hmm.
of, sitting around campfires. Of course, we're making s'mores in summer camp, like that kind of memory. Hot dogs on a stick, holding the
Yep.
fire. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just, it really translated. And even song itself, I was looking for a word, like, where's a word like hallelujah that I can use to portray? And even song, I was just sort of searching online, looking for something that would convey kind of the feeling of where the song was going lyrically. And even song is an old church term, I think referring to, singing, night, singing, very spiritual. And it's an old word. You don't hear that word used, but it just seemed to fit so well. And yes, I think I really did surprise her with this song. It's one of the, I mean, a lot of times when I'm writing songs and I'm playing for her, she'll like, okay, well, let's try that one. I like it enough that we can try it in production. This one, she was like, yeah, great. That one's a go. You know, it was no question on this one, I think. So we're going down to Yucca Valley around Joshua Tree in a couple weeks with our photographer, who's done the last two records for us, and he's going to shoot a video for us as well. He's an incredibly gifted photographer. He does a lot of. He's mainly, I hate to use to describe him this way because he's more than this, but his a lot of his success has come as a food photographer.
Okay.
He's done like 20 plus cookbooks, Michelin 3-star restaurants out here in the Bay Area, Banu, Manresa, and he's done some documentary short films. He's so much fun to work with. Personally, I hate my pictures. Like all the pictures are taken, I hate them. But he manages to get just like dozens of pictures when we go shoot for that I think, great. I like these pictures of myself, and it's so unusual. Uh, so he came up with the idea, like, let's go down to the desert, and we're gonna shoot, the video around a campfire at dusk, um, and
And he's an avid camper, so he
Okay.
knows all the spots.
oh yeah,
Right.
and it's when I asked him, so are you going to have a storyboard or you know um, uh, narrative to follow? He said, no, we're just going to kind of go and wing it. I'm like, great. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be fun, and he's already shown his tremendous improvisational skill when we've gone out shooting pictures with him. So we have 100% faith it's going to be fun, and it should be really, hopefully, a very moving visual to accompany that song, which for us really means a lot.
Yeah, it sounds as though you're really embracing the whole video concept to portray the songs. I mean, this would be a four videos deep then. You know, it's great. I mean, because it is, I mean, back in the day, it was a pressure for bands to have to, for the MTVs and the VH1s, they had to. That you hear from a lot of people, and when you read books about these people, they say it was pressure to come up with videos we had to have videos. Now you do them because you want to. I mean, I know it helps. It certainly helps to get your faces out there, your likelihood, your music. But at the end of the day, if you didn't, or and you tell me if I'm wrong, maybe there are there people in the industry who say you really have to have videos, or do you do it more because it's a choice or a requirement these days?
I think it is still a requirement, and for us, it's a very effective way of reaching people
Yeah.
and of conveying the mood of the song in a way that maybe just hearing it doesn't, it's just different. Um, so yeah, I don't really feel pressure to do them. Uh, Fortunately, we work with some really talented people, both David, who did the Sweet Spot video, and Eric. Um, they're such positive people and so um, good with ideas and execution that they, I mean, we haven't worked with Eric yet on the video, but we work with him doing photos, and it's just fun. And there's no, when we shoot the pictures, to me, there's no pressure at all. Um, I don't know about you, but
No, not at all. I mean, he's I call him the magic man because he's like part elf or something. He just like he can sense what's going to be a great shot, and then he'll say, "Run out there," and take some snaps, and he's just got the eye. I'll just say that
yeah,
he's got the
that's it.
eye, and he's mystical, magical.
I guess if you've got the right people around you, to help with the process, and also as independent artists that I think back in the 80s when MTV came out or VH1, there was pressure because it wasn't that they could do it the way they wanted to. Maybe there was someone telling them it has to be, you have to have this look, you have to have these people in the video, and you have to have, the overproduced maybe back in the day that they had to really have. You could decide to go to a nature park, a forest, make a video, go to a warehouse and record how you want to without anyone saying it has to be this way. Maybe that's what takes the pressure off. You can interpret your song the way you want to, or how you visualize it, and you do it, and no one's telling you to do it differently. Well, we know the song's about this, but why don't you do it that way? And I think that's what happened in the 80s and 90s when the video short form first came out. I think maybe.
Yeah, we're fortunate that we can um, uh,
Maintain control.
Right.
Nobody's like infiltrating, saying, "Oh,
Yes,
I think this
that
should be
helps a lot.
and at the same time, we're very fortunate that we have a group of people we work with who are so talented, so that
so great."
we have kind of a vision of where the song should go. But both the videos, both for Sweet Spot and for Even Song, uh, I I sent the directors um, the album and I said, which song do you want to shoot a video to? And they each picked those songs, and I'm fine with those. If they had picked another song, I probably would have been okay with that too. But I wanted them to shoot a song that they had a connection to. And it's kind of like us working with the drummer we had on this record and the keyboard player, where I didn't really give them a lot of instruction when I sent them the files to work on. I just told them to play what they hear. And in a certain sense, with the videos, I just said, okay, here's the album. Which song do you have a connection to? Which song would you like to shoot a video to? And what would you do? Uh,
Yeah.
and Eric, he immediately connected with the Even Song and said, let's go to the desert. Let's shoot around the campfire, nighttime, stars. Great, we're there. So we the song has inspired him. We know what the song and the video should convey, but we're going to let him execute that and help lead us to that place.
It's a great position to be in, where you have people who you can, like you said, talented musicians and videographers and photographers that you can rely on to help guide and shape the format, but they're not tightening the screws saying it has to be this way. They're just people that you've brought on board to help with the process, a good eye, a good ear to make it your own without the pressure of maybe back in the day the record label saying it should be this way, it has to be this way. This can't be the first single, this can't be the first video. Heard too many stories. I used to work for one of the record labels, one of the majors, and I heard that story too many times.
Yeah, we're fortunate in that way. It's not easy being our own label and doing all the promotion, and because there's something about when you are experienced as a musician, and not that it's easy to make a record, but in a sense, it might be the easiest part of all of this.
Yeah.
Well, because I remember when we finished our first record, I thought, great, love the record. Now what? What do I do with it? How do I mean, I know how to release an album, to load it up through one of these, services that will distribute to all the streaming services. And
Yeah.
but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of records being released all the time. How do you cut through the noise? And I just didn't want to release the first record without having some kind of plan, but I didn't really. And fortunately, we met up with Erin Anderson, who's been helping with our project management, and we've learned so much from her about how to release a record, how to deal with the business side. And yes, there will be certainly some big advantages to being on a record label. At the same time, because we are our own record label, we get to make all the decisions. How much money are we going to spend? What exactly are we going to do? How are we going to promote? Where
Yeah.
are we going to promote? All of that. And it really gives us a lot of freedom when it comes to like making videos. We can do things that we're not pressured.
Right. That's great. And you were talking about the food photography before, the food photography process, and how he's so much more than that you mentioned. But this would be the time in 2022 to be a food photographer. Because think about, with all the social media out there, how many of our friends and family members take pictures of their meals when they go out, and and they show this, so the color and how it looks and the presentation, and that's quite an industry to be in. I think it's amazing. And it's an amazing time to be in that industry, and then to be able to take that skill set and bring it into the world of music too, and to do things musically with it.
Initially, when we were getting ready to put together the artwork for the second record, we were going to be going back to Nashville, where we shot our first video, and we were going to shoot pictures with the photographer, who's quite a good photographer as well. But between the pandemic and the tornado in
Right.
Nashville,
Yeah.
we couldn't go.
Yeah.
So I contacted Eric, our current photographer, and I asked him, like, I know you shoot, food photography, but like, have you ever done album covers? He said, oh yeah, I did some way back when. He goes, but I don't think of myself as a food photographer. He said, I shoot people. So when you look through his cookbooks, there are a lot of pictures of the people who
Huh.
work in the restaurants, the people who grow the food. He did a cookbook for a company out here called Dandelion Chocolate. And he was in Africa on one of the big cacao plantations that they use. And there's just incredible pictures of the people
Hmm.
that work there. He tells the story of the food through these pictures of the people. And I thought, oh, okay, then this will work. And he was, he quickly came on board, and I had known him for a while. And he started, just briefly, his as a career, he grew up in San Diego. He's a big surfer, loved to shoot pictures. But he came up to San Francisco and ended up working at a very successful bakery called Tartine. And he spent 5 years or so there learning. He just fell in love with making bread. Like he's a very passionate person.
Right.
And he became really good friends with the owner, taught him how to surf. And when the owner got a book deal, he asked Eric to shoot the pictures. Said, "You know more about how to shoot the bread and all the things we make here in the bakery than any, acclaimed food photographer that I could go and hire." And that was the kickstart for him.
That's really a neat story, and how organically that happened. That's so neat.
Yeah. So, his path, you just, like a lot of people, you never really know where your talents are going to take you.
You have to be open to the environment around you, and in touch with the world, and you never know where it goes.
Yeah, that's kind of the really nice thing about playing music. One of the really great things about it is that you don't know where it's going to take you. It's not Groundhog Day. I had a job for many years that I did daytime to pay the bills, and it was a Groundhog Day job. I mean, it essentially was the same thing every day. Every day I knew what my schedule was going to be like next year in terms of deadlines, and fine, but it was, it was boring. I knew everything that was going to come down the road. Whereas here, I don't have a clue.
Right, right.
Mighty Love, could be a giant record. It could be, just another small little blip on the radar screen. Doesn't, and to a certain extent, it doesn't matter to us. Everybody defines success in a different way. I define it as, I feel incredibly successful because I can play, I can write, I can work with my spouse, I can roll into my studio, make a record, and I still feel when I play and write, I still feel like I'm the same way as I did when I was 14 years old when I first started playing. That joy and excitement. I described it in one of my failed songs as, the feeling of when you play a low E chord through a Marshall stack, the feeling that your body gets is pretty incredible. You got that feeling.
Absolutely.
It's just it's a great thing, and it's great because we've all at some point in our life had a Groundhog Day job, and I'm the same way. I couldn't have a Groundhog Day job. I realized I work harder, and I'm home less. I spend much less time at home because of it, and I don't like that part of it. In my full-time career, I don't like the fact that I spend less time with my family. I don't like that at all. And I always think about, am I being selfish because I'm doing something I love? But I know I couldn't do a Groundhog Day job, and I've had them. And the variety is the spice of life, as they say, it's a cliche, but of course, but it's not really cliche. It's true. That variety. I couldn't, and I've done it, and it was very, very difficult. So is it good to be busy and having to try harder to balance, or to be miserable but home a lot? Then no one wants to deal with you because you're miserable. They don't want to deal. Say, go and listen to some music. Go watch a TV show. We don't want to listen to you in the house complaining about life. So what's the trade-off? Groundhog Day or passionate?
So true.
Difficult.
Yeah, that's
So
the question.
yeah. Just Call Him Love. So if I understand correctly, this is a historical song that goes back to the rodeos of the 1800s, correct? Is that?
That is correct. This also really touched me. Again, a song that was a result of what was going on in 2020 and the confrontations that were happening, and I still am taken aback by the hatred and divisiveness that is still in this world, the prejudices. And there are a number of stories that came out, at that time, and I came upon a story or two about black cowboys from the late 1800s and how they, even though essentially 1 out of every 4 cowboys at that time were black, but completely ignored and removed from history. Um, and so I wrote a song about it. There's actually a great museum. I've never been to it, but somewhere in Oklahoma, there's a guy, a black guy who loved the rodeo, and he was in a barn somewhere somewhat early in his life. I'm not sure exactly when. Maybe he might have been in his 20s. I don't remember exactly when it was, but he came across a picture of all these cowboys. They were all black. He's like, "What? Like, how is that?" You know, and so he did a lot of investigating, and he ended up starting this museum with this incredible collection of pictures and memorabilia about that time. So I wrote a song. Laura said, "Love the sentiment, don't love the song." Like, okay. So I didn't throw it away, and I came across a story about Nat Love, who's this famous rodeo star. You know, he was called Dead-Eye Dick, I think was one of his nicknames. Um, Supposed to be a great shot, a champion rodeo guy, and he was a slave who, you know, was born around Nashville, and at the age of 15, a year or so after the Civil War, left, ended up in Dodge City, hooked up with some ranching outfit out of Texas, and off he went. And it's this whole story about how the rodeo developed. You know, it really developed because these guys, the guys on the crew, were driving cattle from Texas up to, you know, the northern part of the U.S. to sell. They'd be out in the middle of nowhere on the range, bored, and they're like, "All right, pick the meanest steer you can find. I bet you can't rope him," you know? So these guys would just like take turns doing that, and it turned into what the rodeo is now. And there's just great stories. He wrote his own biography, so his autobiography is in the Smithsonian. It was placed in the Smithsonian in like 1909, something like that. Incredible stories. He was shot 14 times. The day after he got hired in Dodge City, the crew left. They were going back to Texas, and they had given him a pistol, which he had never shot. But the day after they left Dodge City, they were attacked by Indians, and so he learned how to use a gun real quick.
Yeah, I bet. Wow.
But the story I mean, it was a great story. I loved writing about him, but it was the bigger picture of how they, you know, were ignored now in history, but also about back then, the color of their skin did not matter. Like, they're out in the middle of the range, and they could be, killed by cattle rustlers. Like, they were a crew, and they were all in it, one for all for one, Three Musketeers. It didn't matter who you were, where you came from. And so there's a line in the song, in the chorus, about they all slept under the same stars, sort of to mean that we're all just human beings. We're all, here together. And that was sort of the bigger message to convey with him. He was an incredible guy. I mean, if you know anything about Western history and TV shows, I mean, he was best friends with Buffalo Bill.
Yeah. Wow. Really?
Like guys like that, like all the names.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were Bat Masterson, which was a TV show in the early 60s, was one of his best friends. Anyway, so I just thought it was a great story to tell and a bigger picture to try to convey.
I love that lyric. They all sleep under the stars. I always find myself saying, we're all just people. We all put our pants on one leg at a time, and then when you hear, that's a really neat way to say that we're all the same. We all have this life force. We all sleep under the stars. I love that. I did not hear that lyric in the, deep into the song yet. So I'm going to go back and listen to that again, because boy, that's deep. It's deep, and it's not, you know what I mean? It's so prophetic, but yet it's just there it is. Like why, it's like the stamp on the, like, why did it take so long to put adhesive on a stamp? Why did we lick stamp for years, right? We lick stamp for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden there's adhesive, you just throw it on there, to lick that terrible. And this is like, that line is just so like, it's there. It's like, yeah, that's a great way to just explain so many of the mysteries of life. We all sleep under the stars. Wow. I like that.
It was, I was really, really love that song. I love the sentiment. I loved reading the book. The book was great.
The when you look at the song title, Just Call Him Love. That's what's so wonderful about doing this track by track discussion, because you look at it, you wouldn't necessarily, unless you heard the story beforehand, know that love was a person. Just call him Love, like he's a loving person. No, his name was Love. His last name was Love. And that's neat about the song title. That's so cool.
That was really sort of funny how that worked out. I mean, that was, yeah, you're right. He was Nathaniel Love. That was his
Right.
name.
But without knowing the story, they wouldn't know that. They wouldn't know that this is just something about love and loving. But no, this was the man's name.
One of the sadder notes about his story, unfortunately, was that after the Civil War, he didn't really know anything about the war. He was just a slave working on a farm in Tennessee, and the owner of the farm didn't tell him that the war was over and that he was free for a year.
Wow.
After the war was over.
Oh my goodness.
And when he found out, he's like, all right, see you later. And he
Yeah.
left. He's 15 years old and went off and made his mark and just became a famous guy back then. So
I'm looking over to the side of the couch there and I see the guitar. The guitar looks like I've been watching that guitar this whole time and thinking, boy, if we could only give that guitar some use today. Do you guys have a song or two in you today?
Definitely. We'd love to do a couple of songs for you.
Fantastic.
what are we starting with?
Want to do Sweet Spot?
I'm going to close the camera here so that we can focus on you.
I'm just a wandering soul, happy wherever I go. I'm here and I am there, I'm everywhere. On a farm, in a city, small town, or foreign country, waiting for the signal to settle down. I'm looking for my sweetheart, I'm looking for my sweet spot. I'm looking for my sweetheart, I'm looking for my sweet spot. I can see myself in Paris, champagne in crystal, or hanging in Montana on the range shooting pistols. Either one works for me, depends upon my mood. No matter where I am, looking for something new, looking for my sweetheart, looking for my sweet spot, looking for my sweetheart, looking for my sweet spot. Where's a place that I can go home, where I don't have to be alone, where I can let my hair down and turn my life around. 9 to 5 ain't for me, I just wanna be free. Free to listen, free to care, ready to share. In a world filled with doubt, just let me out. Don't want no part of tradition, ain't my ambition. I'm looking for my sweetheart. I'm looking for my sweet spot. I'm looking for my sweetheart. I'm looking for my sweet spot. Looking for my sweetheart. I'm looking for my sweet spot. I'm looking for my sweetheart. You warmed up?
Just beautiful. Wow. I just absolutely beautiful. And it's just how impromptu to be able to, to sit down there together and just say, okay, we're going to sing this. So neat. All the time you spend working on voice quality and instrumental quality, and then just to come together on the spot and take the time to sing for us and play, just wonderful. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Kevin. It's our pleasure.
It's not something I take for granted at all when I can have someone that is willing to perform on our recordings. It's just so neat to see, and just it's such a treat and such a gift to have. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
It's really, I think for us, it's fun to do them this way after working so much on the full band production, and then to translate them into a completely different sort of point of view of how the song exists and gets played. It's fun for me to play them just a simple acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
It's a nice change from creating the bigger picture of the full band.
Right. Well, like you said, this is how the song came together, with a guitar and a voice, a guitar and some lyrics. And then Laura's voice came in and you added your gift of voice to the songs. And just, it's so neat to think. It's always neat when you watch these artists that maybe even some of the heavier music, maybe even the metal, the Bon Jovis of the world, when they do an acoustic set and you hear the songs just at the piano and a voice, and you say, this is how this big production came together. It's always neat to go back to the bare basics of a song, I think, and hear them. It's a treat.
It reminds me of that scene from Spinal Tap, and it's Christopher Guest and Rob Reiner, and Christopher Guest is playing like this soft ballad on the piano, and then Rob Reiner says, "Oh, so what do you call that beautiful song?" And he says, it's like, "Oh, Lick My Love Pump," or something like that, a typical Spinal Tap
Right.
But they take this beautiful little melody and it's a ridiculous Spinal Tap title.
Right. So the next track on the album gave you guys a moment of a break from songwriting, a song to put on to cover a song, Tom Petty's "The Waiting," which I love that song. I was so pleasantly surprised. I love all your music, and it's just always fun though to hear someone that, when you enjoy the voice and you enjoy the instruments, to hear them try to sing someone else's song and see how they're going to arrange it, what they're going to do with it. And I love your version of "The Waiting."
Thank you so much, Kevin. It was a pleasure to do it. I think the reason we did it was because of COVID, and we were doing
Right.
some live stream concerts, and I think we threw in a couple of cover tunes. We did a Nirvana song, we did a Beatles song, and we had thrown in a Tom Petty song along the way. I don't know if we ever actually put it out on that one on the live stream, but we had worked it up.
Yeah.
So it just seemed to fit, because we slowed down that pace so much. It seemed to fit with this album.
It was, I think it was an opportunity for us to really showcase Laura it's not a full band, right?
Right.
There's a string quartet playing on it, but it was really just an acoustic guitar with Laura singing. I really wanted a quiet, more intimate song to really showcase her in that light, which is why I think that song really worked for us. It's a challenge to find a song to cover and give it its just due. You want to pay homage to the artist.
Right.
You don't want to completely destroy it, but yet you don't want to copy it either. You have to make it your own, yet it has to retain the qualities of the original songwriter. We spent hours and hours going through like a lot of songs, figuring out like what songs can we really cover and do them well and meet these sort of goals that we had.
Yeah.
And once I did the acoustic guitars for the song, I thought, oh, this would be really cool to get strings on it. So we had a friend of one of our mix engineers, Eddie, a friend of his is an arranger, producer guy, and he wrote the score and recorded it, and that was that. And we had a song with a string quartet, which was really cool, I thought.
It's a beautiful rendition of the song. I really do love it, and it's just such a nice treat to hear, a cover, and it's even just fun to see where an artist or where their point of reference is. And like you were talking about the Leap of Faith being a Wilburys kind of inspired, and you talked about the Leonard Cohen song, and it's neat to hear that and see where the influences, what brought you to the songs that you wrote, and then to hear you cover a song also then of an artist that you admire, respect their musical catalog. So I thought also we were talking about, you talk about when you did the sequencing for the album and there's a little break. I don't know if you ever remember either of you and Tom Petty's Full Moon Fever, where halfway through the CD, because it was at a time when it was all CDs and not really albums at that point, but it was still tracked. He has this little break and he says that this is the middle of the album. It's on it's right in the middle of that CD.
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
You remember that now? You heard it at some point though, back in the, yeah.
I haven't. This is news to me, so I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that. That's
It's
hilarious.
so funny because he's got like barnyard animals in the background making sounds. He goes, "This is the middle of the album. If we were still releasing 33 and a third, whatever he says, if we were still releasing this would be the middle point where you would flip the record over." It's really funny, and it's right on the CD.
Oh my gosh, it's hysterical.
So it's a fun little thing. I always think about that when I think of that album, and Tom Petty. And I can't believe he's gone either. I mean, taken too soon.
What a loss.
Yeah.
Tragic.
I can't even process it. It's one of those things that when you can remember where you were. It's not with every event in life, but some of those big events. And I just remember driving home from work one day, and I never have the radio on. I usually have my own CDs. I'm listening to CDs in the car, and for some reason I put on the local rock station, and I don't know if I was meant to hear that or what, but I heard it. They were just announcing it. It just within an hour of them finding out what had happened. And I could think of where I was, because I'd seen him several times. I had worked his records, from the record label perspective. I had sold his records, and I just couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it.
It's unimaginable. Yeah. We have a very good friend who grew up in Southern California, and she went to her prom. I don't know when that was, in the early 80s or something, or late 70s, and Tom Petty was playing.
Oh, wow. At her prom.
High school prom.
How neat is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, lucky her, she'll always have that memory.
Yeah. What a memory. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you imagine that?
No.
And not at the time, you wouldn't know where he would be going. You wouldn't know where that career would take off to.
Right. She said they were great. I mean, obviously, she said they were phenomenal.
Wow, that's really something. That's quite the story. I mean, just, my cousin said that they at their prom was Styx. That Styx played at their prom, because Styx is from Chicago. I'm a Chicagoan, and the Styx played at their prom. That was their, they formed in Chicago, and that was their prom band. My cousins. Yeah.
How lucky.
Imagine that, huh?
So lucky.
I think we had a DJ at our prom, you know, I mean, I don't know, you know, I think we had a DJ. So,
Oh
but,
my
you know,
gosh.
a couple neat stories like that out there. Yeah. Um, Labor Day and just, I mean, the album was released Labor Day week. Intentional or did
Coincidence.
coincidence, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Labor Day. My sister-in-law is a very witty person, and it's why she's been um, a DJ on the public radio station KMUD up in Northern California for many years. She has a Sunday night blues show. She's a blues lover, blues aficionado, knows everything about that music genre. Anyway, she's so witty. She was here one day a couple of years ago, and she said, "Oh yeah, Labor Day. I've been working, whatever the line is in the song. I was born on Labor Day and been working ever since." I'm like, "Wait a second!" I like grabbed my phone, wrote it down,
Uh-huh.
and this is another example of where I wrote a song based upon that, and Laura said, "I like the sentiment. Song's not good enough." Okay, so I put it away. Yeah.
Back to work, you.
And a year or two later, again, 2020 events and this whole, threat of the government sending out troops to quell, the supposed riots. And there are, I happened upon a story about the very, very famous dock strike, dock strikes all up and down the West Coast in the 1930s. Essentially, all of us who have seen On the Waterfront, that's what this song really came from.
Right.
That's what it was like back then. The workers had no rights. The shipholders, the people who ran the shipping companies, they had all in control. They controlled the docks. They controlled who worked. And you know, these people didn't get paid well, they had no benefits, very, very unfair. And so the strikes came about, and they were major, crippling strikes. And the government, sent troops in to break up the strikes, on behalf of the shipyard owners and the shipping company owners. And people died. I think the worst ones were here in the Bay Area. So it was an intriguing story, a story about equality, and again, these people who were working, the longshoremen who were working, they came from all walks of life. It's not, again, it's sort of like the cowboys out in the range. I mean, you were a crew, and it didn't matter, whether you were Italian or Polish or you came from Latin America. It didn't matter. You were part of the crew, and you were all being treated unfairly, and they all went out, and banded together, and they put their lives on the line.
Yeah.
And as a result, things changed for the better. But it took, an extraordinary effort from people up and down the West Coast to gain their rights. And again, I mean, it's On the Waterfront. That movie captured it perfectly. So that's really what it was an intriguing story that allowed me to observe and comment upon the sort of the deeper meaning of it all.
Right. Right.
Oh, yeah, those horrible conditions, the suffering, the sacrifice. And I'm so glad you went back. I'm so glad I sent you back that day because, seriously, because you were reading that book. And I love it when Andy, oh my God, so he's an avid reader, and he reads a lot of biographies. And I love it when he'll take one of those and turn it into a song. And that's what he did here. And I just think you excel at that because I think those stories are so interesting, and it's a form of oral tradition, because God forbid, they might burn books or something, or
Right.
erase that from try to erase from history, but we have that oral
Yeah,
tradition of relaying the story through the songs. It's kind of cool.
absolutely. And yeah. And
Like that
just
song.
it's sometimes a historical song, I think it's the perfect moment when you can get the melody and the story. Like sometimes historical songs can tend to get, you can get lost in the story, and or I don't know if I'm saying this right, but I guess when you have the perfect match of in this Labor Day, I really feel like it's so catchy and it's historical, where sometimes people get, how back in the day, multiplication rock and grammar rock and all the songs that were on TV, they found ways to make learning fun with those catchy melodies. And here you're telling a story, and a historical true story, and your melody is still very kitschy, and it brings people in. Sometimes someone can get lost, say, oh, this is a song about this. Next track. But no, you're telling a great story, historical story, and you've got a catchy melody to keep people listening.
And I also found the hook to be just, it's sort of a little funny, like, oh, I was born on Labor Day, been working ever since,
Love it.
There's a little bit of humor there.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's behind it is, the not so subtle truth of, yeah, most of us really have to work hard, and a lot of us are not treated quite as fairly as we think we should be.
Right, right. And that's how you pulled people into the song, with that catchy little hook at the beginning, the lyrical hook and the melody. Then they listen more because they're like, oh, that's kind of funny, and then they listen more and say, wow. And then you're teaching them something that they may have never read or learned about or realized, and in a interesting kind of way, because you kind of pulled them in on that line. So,
I hope so.
yeah. Looking at the next track here, This and That. What can you tell us about This and That? How did that one song come together?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's you.
I tried to write about this subject previously, and it didn't. I think it was one of the songs that got produced for Long Rider, and we decided that the song wasn't good enough. So that's.
It just wasn't complete yet. It wasn't fully formed yet, so we put it aside.
Right. I think I mentioned to you earlier when we were talking that when we finished Long Rider, mixed and mastered, there were two songs that we felt weren't quite as good as the other 10. So we
Right,
pulled
right.
and
Yeah.
one of them was a song that kind of had some of the sentiment of this song, This and That. It's not a damning condemnation of social media and where we are today. So much of technology has really leveled the playing field, certainly for musicians. 20 years ago, I was going into recording studios and buying 2-inch tape.
Yeah.
And now I can make, I haven't really set foot in a recording studio in a long time because I have Pro Tools.
Right.
So that technology, Max and Pro Tools, and you've got a studio. So it levels the playing field tremendously. At the same time, there are, I don't want to, rail on it too much, but there's a downside to social media. We forget that there are other ways to create. So the story kind of talks about, it's great to be able to, write a movie script and edit it, and or write a book and edit it so quickly using Word, for example. At the same time, as the song points out, there are a lot of great books that were written with pen and paper. They didn't have they didn't have the ability to lift sections and move them from here over to here, and move things around. People use this thing. I think they call them typewriters.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it was just to point out that it's great when life can really that technology has elevated so many things for us. At the same time, it's wonderful to go on a picnic, to take get in a kayak and float down the river. Kind of basic things that have been around for a long time and really there's a lot of great art that came out of these, older methods, going into recording studios. Like the Beatles would go in, they spend 2 days, they make a whole record. We don't do that anymore.
Nope.
But the technology was, they were going into 4-track studios, and engineers were bouncing down. They just basically kind of play live. So it was really talking about, the benefits of both the old and the new, and how maybe it might be nice to combine them all together. I mean, I'm using Pro Tools. I'm also playing an acoustic guitar.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's the blending of the two that I think that can really make life a great place to explore, using old and new technologies together.
Yeah, and I think things go full circle with that too, because like people use a Hammond organ, but there's they use it's the technology that way, the old technology with the new.
Oh, happy you mentioned that, because so for this particular record, Mighty Love, we brought on a keyboard player, Dave Cohen, a very well-known keyboard player out of Nashville, played on a lot of records. And when I first started working with him, I would send him files. We both have Pro Tools. I'd send him files, and I sent him some charts. I sent him 3 songs, like, here's some charts I did, and I played a few things for you. It was like maybe a roadmap. And he sent back the tracks, and I also told him, send me back MIDI files, because I want to use my plugins to pick the right sound. So he sent me back some MIDI files, and I asked him, at that point, I said, so did you use the charts and anything from the roadmap? He said, no, because I wrote my own charts, I mean, it's Nashville, right? They
Right.
don't need anybody to help them.
Right.
But he also said, besides the MIDI files, I played on the instruments I have here in my studio, and I sent you those tracks as just WAV files. Well, he was playing on his own B3, his own grand piano.
Yeah.
His Wurlitzer, and I'm like, okay. I listened to those tracks. I'm like, I wrote him back. I said, don't send me any more MIDI. I just want the real instruments. So on this record, there are no plugins when it comes to any of the keyboard sounds. Those are all the real instruments, real grand piano, real B3. When he played on Sweet Spot, again, I just told him, like, play what you hear. He sends it back. He played accordion. I'm like, oh man, perfect. So slap some accordion comps in there, and it worked out great. So yeah, I mean, the B3 is like an instrument from way back, but it just sounded better than any of my B3 plugins. And I have good B3 plugins, and they sound great, but the real thing.
Nothing like the real thing. Nothing like the real thing. When it comes to instruments, when it comes to wind instruments too, you can have samples of wind instruments, a trumpet or a trombone, but nothing's like the real thing. It's just it's so cool to, yeah. So no, it has to be rewarding as songwriters and as singers, singer, songwriter, instrumentalists together, to hear your music come to life with other people than playing their instrument and their take on what they're hearing from you. That's got to be so rewarding when they do it right, which they obviously have done right.
We do love it. So, I mean, when Randy sends back his drum tracks, he sends a video as well. So we get the visual of him. And it's tremendous because he plays with such joy.
Yeah.
Drumming, it's athletic. It's a whole nother art form.
Yeah.
And wow, he's got it going on. I mean, he's exquisite. What he does, the showmanship.
Yeah.
We didn't ask for showmanship. We got it, and it's great.
That was the bonus. Yeah, that was the bonus, that you got the showmanship with it. But yeah, the passion, when you could see the passion he was putting into your songs physically, it adds a whole nother layer of that art.
It actually made it a lot easier to comp his drum tracks, because normally you're looking at 15 audio lines going across your screen in Pro Tools with
Right.
drums.
Yeah.
But to be able to see him, and I didn't know he was going to do this. The first time we worked with him was on this record. He'd do a couple passes through the song. He'd be like, okay, I'm going to play it straight. I'm going to add a few more things, and I'm going to really go for it. Like those are his versions. And he sent back video, as Laura mentioned. And the first time he did that, I didn't know he was going to do that. And it's like, oh my God, like there he is. Like he's actually showing us, he's playing in the studio. And being able to see him play made it easier for me to comp together the drum tracks. And he's so good that mainly I just ended up comping which drum fills I like the best. Which
Right.
drum fill do I like going into the second chorus the best? Because otherwise the grooves were just like knocked down, just perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. How neat. Wow.
But you could just see, and the first thing she said when she saw the first video is, he plays with a lot of joy. And it was great for them, for both of them, both he and Dave, the keyboard player, to just give us their interpretation. Because I would never state that I know what to do in every single piece of the puzzle. I know what to do. I'm not Prince. So having these people, the drummer and the keyboard player, to interpret from their point of view and get a whole different perspective it really expands the music.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, I'm choosing what I want from them to include on the track, but they both played things that I could never think of.
Pretty great.
So what about the track One Day at a Time? How did that song come together?
Was that a song from the previous album? Or did you write in between these albums? I don't remember.
That was, there were a group of early songs. Leap of Faith was early, Evensong was early, One Day at a Time was early. It was really, I wrote it kind of inspired by you, because you have very definitive opinions about things, and you're not afraid to buck the trends. You're not afraid to say what you believe in, even if it's not popular. And so it's sort of written about people who really stand up for themselves and don't just fall in with the crowd.
Right.
And, and also about just that, if you're a good person and you put forth the right energy, you can affect a change, whether it's on a big scale or a small scale, one day at a time, just like, people you're in contact with. It's really about that you can have impact on people. And even if your opinions are not, popular, there's so many examples of people who, were accused of being wrong, and it turns out they were right. I mean, Galileo, this thing called gravity, the apple falls from the tree, the earth is flat. No, it isn't, Well, people who said it wasn't flat, they got into a lot of trouble at some time,
Right.
in their life.
Right.
When that
So
was
true.
So I think it's really just about trying to inspire people to really trust in themselves and believe in their own opinions, and to find out and discover who they are and what they believe in, and to put it forth in a way which can benefit other people, and to stick to their guns. So that's kind of what that song kind of means to me.
Yeah, I love that one. It's, I feel like it's saying everybody makes a difference. Everybody counts. Everybody, I mean, look at how many people you touch with your show, Kevin. I mean, you're constantly influencing people with your perspective and your passion, and it's catchy, it's infectious, and that's what we're talking about.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. very much.
I think part of it also is that, as with all married couples, we don't always agree on things, and that's okay. So it was just something to sort of reinforce the fact that even people you're close to, they don't always have to agree with you, as long as they can listen to you and treat you with respect. And somewhere, always, there's going to be some common ground.
And how much better would things be today if people could agree to disagree? Right? Because there's a lot of separation right now in our world, and a lot of, if people could just agree to disagree, respect someone's opinion, doesn't have to be the popular opinion, it doesn't have to be your opinion, but if we could just agree to disagree, so many things would be a little more on the even level right now, I think. Just my own personal opinion.
I so agree with you.
And then, we all go off to get milkshakes and French fries, and everybody's happy.
There you go. There you go. And everybody lives happily ever after. That's right. Yes. Yes. So after One Day at a Time on the album is Daybreak. What can you tell us about Daybreak? And this is so interesting, by the way, to hear about these songs. Anybody who watches this, it's going to make them want to give the album 10 more spins to really say, wow, that's what they meant. That's so cool. And now I have to listen for that. It's going to make, I know I'm going back. I'm going back.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Well, yeah, so these lyrics were from our friend Ren Winfield. Do you want to talk about her and the lyrics?
Ren was the filmmaker for Lady Longrider.
Right, right.
Helped inspire us for our Longrider album. Ren is a multi-talented person, a truly beautiful soul. And it just so happened that in the course of her asking us to be included on the Lady Longrider project and possibly write a song or so for the documentary film, that it came across that she was quite a good poet. And so she contributed lyrics to one song on the Longrider record, I Am the Map. And then when I kind of ran out of steam at a certain point in the record, towards the later part of the record, I went back to her and said, hey, would you write some more lyrics? Let's see if we can do something. And so I think Daybreak was the first one, like the last three songs on the record, Daybreak, Ghosted, and The Server. She wrote lyrics for all those. Daybreak was the first one. And I actually find it easier to write music to lyrics than writing lyrics. I usually start with lyrics and write music to it. So she would send me send me lyrics, and the music comes quickly. It's, but I also have to, now there's another person involved. So I would, I would start moving things around, and then it's like, I wonder if this is going to be okay with her, because she has a certain vision of what she wants to say and the order she wants to say it in. And so we went, I'd have to run it by her, and she would give me her opinions, and I'd move things back around and whatever. But we always reached a compromise, a good end point. It was actually pretty easy, because her lyrics were very easy to write to, and they really didn't need a whole lot of polishing. So what do you think she means by the song? I mean, it's not an optimistic song. I think it's, for me, she's pointing out that, unless we do something to make this world a better place, we may find that we won't discover what we're missing until it's gone. A clean beach, a clean sky, clean air. We won't notice that, until it's not there anymore. I said, so there's that sentiment there with the lyrics about, you know, every waking dreamer. Um, I don't really want to speak too much for her. I've actually,
Sure.
I've talked to her a couple times in the last month or two, and I said, look, you got to tell me more about what you really think, you know, deeply about these lyrics. So when I have to talk about them,
Yeah.
because I don't want to put words in her mouth, I'm just through my point of view of how I interpret them. She may interpret it differently, but she's a very good poet. She writes in a completely different way than I do. I'm much more literal. She's more poetic, like, you know, a Dylan or a Joni Mitchell, who really write poetry. She really writes poetry.
Right.
And I think it took her a little while to figure out how to write poetry that translates into a song.
Different, right? It's a different process. Yeah, different
Right.
feeling.
You know, there's like, you know, is there a hook? You know, is there a chorus? I mean, so in the beginning, I mean, I'd be shifting things around specifically because of that, and also to try to make it fit into the music. Like there might be an extra line. She might write 3 verses, and one verse has got 5 lines, the other 2 have 4 lines.
Yeah.
Well, I can't make the 5-line verse work. Well, sometimes I can. But, you know, it was a little bit of a learning curve for her as well. But she took to it very quickly. And she's really a joy to work with. And she's a very good friend of ours, and has been for many years.
Well, see, this will be fun because you're giving your interpretation as the person that presents the song on the record. You're giving your interpretation, and you guys could have milkshakes one night and discuss together. Say, well, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, or not so much, or kind of, sort of. You know, it'd be an interesting conversation down the road to say, you know, I know you said you've been trying to pull it out of her a little bit. What does the song mean? But now you're telling her what you think it means, and she might say, "You are right on," or she might say, let's get another milkshake and talk about it some more. So that's interesting. It's really interesting. So yeah.
Well, whatever it means, it makes me so happy. I'm so humbled to sing her lyrics because
Yeah.
they're just beautiful. And
Yeah.
I think it's a really positive message because it's, you know, every waking dreamer rises with the light. I mean, I love that line. Yeah. And I love that line. And to me, that's just so positive. It's like, you know, when it clicks, and
Right.
it's gonna click for you eventually. It clicks for everybody eventually. I mean,
I think now that you mentioned that, I remember that I was moving lyrics around. And I'd moved those 2 lines somewhere up into the middle of the song. And she's like, no, no, no. Like, that has to come only at the end.
Yeah.
This is only the conclusion where I present the positive side.
That's the glimmer of optimism at the end. Right.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh, you're right. Okay, I moved it back down.
Yeah. Yeah. Neat. So I know you said that the last 2 tracks, then Ghosted and The Server, were also her lyrics. But since we are breaking this down track by track, how do you interpret, you know, what do you think? I mean, and all of us too, right? We hear people's songs a certain way and they mean something to us. And if we never hear from the songwriter themselves what they thought, that song takes on a whole new meaning. You know, songs that we grew up with, songs that we've listened to, and they've saved us from terrible times, or they've made us happy, or they've made us sad. And if we heard the real meaning of the song, we might be so surprised that that wasn't what the songwriter intended, but it was our meaning. So it's never wrong. I think it's interesting to be able to say what you think the song is about and then compare notes.
I agree.
So with Ghosted, I'm just curious as to how the 2 of you interpret Ghosted, the lyrics and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what Ren would say, but I think she was really obvious in her, with her message there in today's age of, you know, Instagram or whatever
Yeah.
you want to call those services.
Yeah, I think I talked to her a little bit about this one, and it was about, you know, just how, you know, it's so easy not to feel good about a relationship, for example, where you can see what that person's doing now. Like, they broke up with you, they ghosted you, but they're not out of your life. I mean, they're there. I mean, you don't have to look, but if you look, you can continue to see everything that this person's doing and where they're going and who they're with, and it hurts. Uh, um, so that's and maybe sort of a bigger comment on this social media in general.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I hear the term used more and more these days to hear being ghosted, and you hear the younger generation say, "Yeah, I was ghosted," or "This person was ghosted. They didn't," I was, I have to interview people in my line of work, and sometimes they say, they don't show up. They don't show up for an interview. They don't call. They don't write. I said, "Oh, you were ghosted, weren't you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess that's the term we'll use." They didn't show. They weren't there. So that's the social
but the,
media.
at the same time, it's like, okay, well, you don't have to look, but as she wrote in the chorus, who's happier than me? I want to know.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
want to know. So
Right.
so they, whoever they is, they are, they're gonna look. They want to know.
Yeah, that reminds me, a friend of ours once said about Facebook. He was saying how, when you see everybody with their happy lives and, they're posed just perfectly and what if you're someone you don't have that and you're longing for that? Does that make them feel
Yeah.
bad? And I thought, wow, that's a really sensitive, it's a great question. Are we, because everybody's putting their best foot forward or whatever. So yeah, but it's definitely something to ponder, to be sensitive about.
Yeah.
It's not quite real what we see on Instagram and Facebook all the
Yeah.
time, is it?
Now people feel that they have to put that front, like you said, best foot forward and show people. And some of those people, it's a form of therapy for them because it helps them to feel that things are okay and maybe they're not. And people get the positive feedback, like, "Oh, that's fantastic. You did this, you did that." Or sometimes it could be backfire. It'd be the opposite way, that you feel like you're living the lie because you're saying all of this, that you're doing all of this, and you're like struggling to just make it look like it's all okay. It's a whole new world of that we live in with social media. It has changed a lot of the way people interact and how we perceive the world and other people, friends and family. It's yeah, deep. So the final track on the album uh is The Server, and one more of Ren's lyrical compositions, I believe, right? This one also.
Yes, this is I think it was the last one that she wrote for the record, and it's a really interesting story that got her started on this. Um, she has a good friend whose son is a tech engineer, kind of coding guy, who was working, and I hope I'm getting the story right, was working for a company and spent like a year and a half trying to ensure that hackers couldn't hack into pacemakers.
Oh, wow.
Hack,
Wow.
hack.
I mean, how do we even need such a thing,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
I mean,
So she just sort of started with that idea and just, well, for people who don't have love in their heart, for people who have, um, you know, intentions that are not particularly worthwhile,
Yeah.
can we can we just sort of can we hack their heart and like clear it out and just bring the light into their heart and bring good and sunshine and so it was
it was such an interesting take on, oh, are people just whacked out, that they would be so whacked out that they would hack a pacemaker or whatever. I mean, could that just be a glitch? What if there's a way that you could get inside there and just flip a switch and fix that? So I love where she's coming from. I love the imagery that she pushed out there with that one. And the struggle on our part was like, oh man, this is heavy. This is
Yeah.
cool. You know, how am I going to sing hack? You know, that's like
Right.
it's not a word. It's like I wouldn't sing hack, and how am I going
Uh-huh.
to sing that? What's the feel of this song? Should this be a slow, somber song? Should it be rock and roll? What is it?
I remember I wrote it and it was kind of, I think, a little bit on the slower side. And you're like, no. Like, you got to think The Who. You know, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And that worked out really well. The server, I think, essentially is she's referencing God, whatever your interpretation of God is, because you want to serve the server, whoever that, whatever you believe in, and that's the, the path to becoming a good person, that you're following these good intentions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're right. When I was first writing to it, was like, hack. That's not a good word to sing. How are we going to make that work out? But it did work out pretty well, I think. So yeah.
Made for a good challenge. It made for a good challenge. How do we make this word fit into without changing the lyrical content? This is the word she picked. How do we make it sound good musically? And you did it. You did it.
Yeah, there was no changing that word. We could.
So we got to the bottom of the album. I wonder if we can go back to the top and hear "Leap of Faith." I know we talked about that being, the lead-off single. Do you guys have it? I know we've done a lot of talking and about the songs, and that we could hear one more. That would be great. And that's personally my favorite song, "Leap of Faith."
Oh, thank you so much, Kevin. We'd love to perform it. We take a leap of faith, throw caution to the wind. When our baby comes along, we're all in. Are we good enough? Are we prepared to receive unconditional love? Ready or not, here it comes. They show innocence with no prejudice. A gift from heaven, a blank canvas for us. We take a leap of faith, throw caution to the wind. When our baby comes along, we're all in. Well, one was best for them, but are we qualified? Is this our chance for redemption? All we can do is try. If we fail, we are to blame. And if they succeed, they should get the fame. 'Cause we are only begun to carrying on. We take a leap of faith, throw caution to the wind. When our baby comes along, we're all in.
take a leap of faith, throw caution to the wind. When our baby comes along, we're all in. We take a leap of faith, throw caution to the wind. When our baby comes along, we're all in. Yeah, 'cause we are ready to jump on in the deep end. We are ready, 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 set, jump.
I just love this. I love the ending. I love the whole song. And as I listened again, the power of being able to hear what a song is about. I listened with a whole different sense of enjoyment to the lyrics. It meant that much more because you explained to us how you wrote it and what it meant to you. And boy, I grabbed onto every word. I really did. Whereas the first time I loved the melody, I loved a couple of the lines that I heard pop out. And then to hear it again with your description of what it's about, it just meant that much more. It really did. So
Thank you so much.
so I really hope that as we, the people, as the people listen to this interview and watch this interview, that it makes them go back and delve deeper into your album, because it really is worth a 10th and 11th and 12th and 50th listen. It's got so much.
Thank you,
That's,
Kevin.
actually, from a production point of view, that's really one of my big goals, is to put enough in there without getting in the way
Yeah.
of things that will bear up under repeated listenings, that you find new things to discover. It's kind of like my criteria for the game I will play sometimes of the, you're going to take 5 records to the desert island for the rest
Oh
of your
yeah,
life.
sure.
Right. What are you taking? And I'm taking records that really stand up under repeated listenings, records that I just discover more and more layers of things. And I really try to build that into the records that we're making. And hopefully I'm getting better at it. I think this one uh, is a step in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You've been so generous with your time today, and I really appreciate it. It was so fun to delve into all these songs. I just want to wrap things up with a couple quick questions so we can get people pointed in the right direction towards your music, to continue them on that path. Are you planning to take any of these songs? Well, take the whole album. Are you planning to take this new music on the road with you? Are you planning to do any touring?
Um, right now, the only thing we have on the books is a possible trip to Nashville, where our billboards are up, and we're thinking, maybe we could do a set in front of the billboards and
How
live
cool would that
stream it,
be?
or yeah, we're thinking about that.
I think that it's the next hurdle for us is to uh, take it out on the road. Um, we're a little more free with our time now. We have a son who just became a freshman at college,
Oh,
so
yeah.
we've got the mixed bag going on.
Sure,
But
sure.
we have a little more freedom to our time. This is the next challenge for us is to how to get this out on the road. And I think the challenge isn't so much that, oh, can we play these songs? I mean, the songs will be interpreted playing like this. We may have go out with a stand-up acoustic bass player, which has worked in the past. But the biggest hurdle to me, from the business point of view, is it's the booking itself. Booking is a horrible job to do, probably for everybody, certainly for the musician. But it's a catch-22. Like, you can't really get a booking agent until you get to a certain point, and they know they can make money by booking you. The booking agents have relationships with clubs and venues all over the country, and so whoever the booking person is at a particular club is going to return a phone call from a booking agent because they know the agent's got 5 or 10 or 20 different acts that are coming through, that, they are going to want to book on a somewhat continual basis. Whereas if I call, I'm just another, musician trying to, play the club. So that's the challenge: is how do we get the gigs? How do we get on the road?
Yeah,
I know what to do when we're going to play at a show, either
right.
with the two of us or adding a bass player or whatever. But it's how do we get somebody to work with us on that?
Yeah, that's would be a big challenge because, like you said, the established relationships of the publicists and the agencies and everything, and these places, these venues get so many calls, so many blind, you know, applications to play, and I see it myself in my work. I work for a venue, and I see how many people are coming to us with requests to play.
Mhm. That's
So
tough. It's tough. But I mean, maybe we can get on a festival circuit.
yeah,
Maybe
sure,
that would be a great way. I
yeah.
would love that. So,
Well, just keep in mind, I had offered last time, if you ever come to Chicago, I'm your volunteer tour guide. Okay, just remember that I volunteer
thanks,
that.
Kevin. Oh my gosh.
We would take you around,
Fabulous.
show you the town. So
Yay. I love Chicago.
yeah,
That would
yeah.
be
So
awesome.
try to get to a couple of spots that maybe you didn't get to see, in past visits. So
Absolutely. Oh my, that'd be great. Thank you.
um, sure. So where are the best places for people to go social media wise to learn more about you and to interact with you a little bit from a distance?
I think that the best place would be either Instagram or Facebook.
Okay.
Um, we post to both those places and Twitter all at the same time. So that's a good place to reach us. You can also contact us directly through the website, um, which has been updated recently. Looks great. Got a lot of nice pictures up there, and links to the videos and to our YouTube channel. You can hear all the music on our YouTube channel. You can see all the videos. There's some stuff up there from some of the live streams that we did, as well as the official videos. So I think that those are, the website, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Those are really the primary places where they can see, hear, listen, and contact us.
Well, and there's a lot of content that you've put out there, which is great. So, I mean, people have a lot of different things. They could even learn how to cook. I wish we had a little more time to talk about that. We did delve into it last time. I haven't learned how to cook any better, but I should. If I would just spend the time to watch the videos, I learn something every time I watch them. I just have to spend more time to learn because you make it very easy. You make it look easy, at least. So,
Cooking is it's for me, one of the great pleasures in it, and it serves a necessary function. I think that a lot of people should have, not just because you get to eat good food, but it's a place where for a couple of hours I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm not thinking about my punch list in the studio for whatever songs I'm working on. I'm not thinking about, if I was working a job, I wasn't thinking about that. Whatever problems there are, like, oh, I got to get the kid to, some after school event tomorrow. When I'm cooking, sort of life stops. It's similar to like when you go to a rehearsal, if you're playing in a band, and you walk in, like you're sort of leaving everything at the door. So it provides that sort of escape for me personally. In addition to the somewhat instant gratification of getting to eat the food.
Yum. I love that part.
But then there's times when, like, we'll have a dinner party. 6 people are coming over, and you spend all day cooking, all day, and then they come over and people just they just destroy the food, right? They just here it is, and like in an hour it's all gone. It's like, hey, I spent all day long cooking, and we just, I mean, the pleasure is great, but the consumption of it never lasts as long as the cooking of it.
yeah, it's true. Like you think about meals like Thanksgiving, all that preparation for a big family meal on a holiday, and then half an hour or less, it's all devoured, and there all that's left is dishes. you know? So,
Yeah. In fact, last in 2020, when Thanksgiving came around, we for years hosted family and extended family, and and orphans, friends of friends, whatever. We would have 25, 30 people over for Thanksgiving, and it was a raucous, fun-filled party. The house got destroyed. We'd have the house perfectly clean, beautiful before Thanksgiving, and then
uh-huh.
the next day. But
Yeah.
for the pandemic Thanksgiving, her mom and her brother came over, and that was it. And I woke up the next morning, I'm looking around, it's like, where are the 30 empty wine bottles? Where are all the dirty dishes? How come the floor looks clean?
You're thinking we can get
It
used to
just,
this. We can get used to this kind of a holiday, a little bit
I almost
quieter.
said, to me, it didn't feel right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, again, you've been so gracious with your time today. I wish you all the possible success in the world with your new album. It's always fun to get to talk and learn more about what all the great things you're doing. And so thanks so much for taking the time to share your gift of song, of voice, of instruments, of story. Just been such a pleasure.
Kevin, you're the best. Thank you for having
Thank
us on
you.
again.
Thank
And
you.
honestly, I mean, we haven't been doing a lot of traveling at all, except for taking our son to college. But aside, we should go to Chicago, and we're going to contact you, and let's go. Let's go do up the town.
I think it'd be a lot of fun. It'd be so much fun to show you the town, the things that maybe you haven't seen on previous visits. It'd be a lot of fun. So let's keep that in mind for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes, we've only been there once, so.
Oh, well, then we got a lot to show you then. Okay, I wasn't sure how many times. We have a lot to share. Clear about 2 months? No, I'm joking. No. So no, thank you so much. And it would be fun to do that. So wish you all the best.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Kevin.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, I hit the stop button. So I really do appreciate it. And I hope I was looking at the clock, and actually I have to teach in about 21 minutes. But I teach at a park district, which is 5 minutes from my house. So I'll be good. I'm all ready to go. It's the first day of the new session. So I have all these new students to meet. But I worked on it last night, so I'm good. But I hope I didn't take up too much. But yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. So yeah, so I'm off to do that, but this is always so fun. And you guys are so passionate about what you do. It's so fun I can't wait to share this with other people, and you're so passionate about it. I see. I guess I stopped. I guess you can't see. Can you see me anymore? Oh, I see what I did. So recording.